Hi everybody, I'm Marc Laurenson, and we're continuing on with the South Node through the sign series. And in this clip, I'm going to be talking about the South Node in the sign of Gemini. So for the people who've got the South Node in Gemini, the energy that comes in with this is a highly strung, anxious, hyperactive, restless kind of energy that comes in via people who had to live by their wits, so to speak. People who had to adapt very, very quickly to what was going on around them, make very, very quick decisions. And in some cases, they could have been quite stressful and highly pressurized decisions that they had to make on the spot, so to speak. Now, when you're thinking about this, you need to understand that for Gemini, most of this would have gone on between the ears, meaning the mind or the brain just didn't stop ticking. And so you get a feeling of the mouse, the mouse on the wheel in the cage, just going around and around and around and around with stacks and stacks of mental activity going on, but actually going not very far with it, going nowhere with it. And so this is where the anxiety and the anguish that comes in with the South Node in Gemini, this is where it comes from. Now, with the South Node in Gemini, I like to think they were caught up in what I would call small thinking. And I don't want to bring that down to make them sound like they were just playing at a very superficial level. But, when you're looking at the South Node, you always have to put it in contrast to the North Node, because the North Node is the trajectory where we're heading as far as what we need to integrate into our lives this lifetime to help with the balancing out of the nodal axis. And the North Node is always new territory for us. So the North Node, of course, is going to be in Sagittarius. The North Node is seeking the bigger picture. It's seeking the higher meaning to things. And so you get an understanding that the South Node in Gemini is actually looking at things at a much smaller level. Now, there could be, a lot of things around logic and reason and trying to make sense of things, bringing things down to data and that kind of bits and pieces, compartmentalized information. But at the same time, I feel that this was probably tripping them up. This need to constantly ask questions, or this need to never get the answers they wanted, probably kept them in a place of frustration again, and feeling that the situations that they were in were difficult. Now, with the South Node in Gemini, I don't want to say that they were immoral, but I believe that the truth would have been compromised a bit with the South Node in Gemini. Again, you've got to put it into context with the North Node in Sagittarius, which is stretching out for a higher understanding of truth and principles. And a moral compass of sorts. Now, the South Node in Gemini, as I said, is just reacting to what is happening at the spur of the moment, what it can get at the time. And so, as I said, I don't want to call it immoral, but I think there would have been an amoral quality that goes on with this. A little bit like there's a wallet with $10 in it. I haven't eaten all day and I haven't got the money, and if I can just quickly just grab $10 out of there, it's very Artful Dodger. You get the feeling of that. Very Bart Simpson also around the quick thinking, smartness that you need in those kind of situations. Now, I'm not saying that every person with the South Node in Gemini actually did this, but I'm sure they would have been in situations where this would have been around, so to speak. Now, with the South Node in Gemini, you're going to be looking at the kind of person you were. a Gemini person. So you could have been a teacher, you could have been a writer, you could have been a messenger of sorts, you could have been a merchant, you know, a buyer or seller, any of those kind of things. Now, when you're looking at the South Node in a sign, you always have to look at the ruler of the sign that the South Node is in. And in this case, it's going to be Mercury. So you're going to be looking at where Mercury is in the chart by sign and by house to give you some extra information, possibly about who you were in the circumstances. So everything could change, you know, a lot of things will change depending on the house and the sign that Mercury is in, and also aspects made by that. Now, I have to reiterate that for the two videos I already did with Taurus and Aries, we're looking at Venus for Taurus, of course, and Mars for Aries as well. So with the South Node in Gemini, we also have to understand the level of communication will also go down the road of problems with this. And as I said, the Mercury might be able to give you some information about that. Now, when I say problems with this, communication and Gemini go hand in hand, as we know, but the South Node always brings in a residue of something that needs to be healed or something that needs to be fixed. So there could have been a problem around communication, not being able to learn, not being able to speak, not having people understand you, that kind of thing. That's all very much an issue with the South Node going through Gemini. So also you can also bring in the youth that comes in with Gemini. Gemini has got a nimble quality. It's very flighty and very young. So maybe the South Node carried a youthful appeal about it as well. A young person having to deal with the everyday environment and having to react and to improvise on an everyday level as well. You know, in a school environment could have been a great one to understand that through. Also, the siblings come into this too. There might have been a sibling connection of sorts, or maybe neighbours or very, very close relatives come into the South Node in Gemini as well. So with the South Node in Gemini, you always have to look at how it can get replanted and how it can grow anew. So that's going to be helped by the North Node in Sagittarius, of course. So the North Node in Sagittarius is trying to get out there into the world. It wants to explore, it wants to expand, it wants to experience, it wants to learn something, have some faith in life, wants to get some meaning out of life. And so with the South Node in Gemini, the South Node in Gemini can be replanted by being able to put the North Node experiences and the North Node knowledge into communicative form. You know, it can bring it down into what we're doing right now. It can bring it down into being able to speak it, being able to write it, being able to teach it. And so it gets away from the stress. It gets away from the little bits and pieces of small data that goes nowhere, and it's actually just now becoming an instrument of sorts for a higher level of understanding and being able to get that out into the world, and so people can understand it, so people can get it, so it can make sense. So when the South Node in Gemini gets turned around in that respect, it feels like it has somewhere to go, and then everything it has to say becomes important.